Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Kesubos, Ayin Hey 75. We have a great share for you today. We're going to talk about these mumim, these blemishes, physical blemishes that passel a woman. If they finds out, makes it tonight that his wife doesn't have any mumim, she has certain mumim. The Mishnah says mumim like a Kohen, that passel a Kohen, which are enumerated in Maseches Bechoros. We're going to find out that the woman's mumim are more severe than a Kohen. There are actually some mumim that passel a woman and not a Kohen. And we're going to talk more in Enoch Ben Sion about mumim that actually passel a man and the difference between the mumim of a man and the mumim of a woman in invalidating a marriage. Let's get started. The top of Ayin Him and Aleph, about 8 lines down. Rava Amar, trying to answer two different brises. I mentioned yesterday, one brisa says that if he's Makadish or Almanas that she doesn't have Nadarim, right, or she doesn't have Mumim, and she goes to a Chacham to be Matir the Neder after the Erison, or a doctor to heal the Mumim. So one brisa says that if he's Matir the Nadarim, she's Mikudeshes. One brisa says either way, in either case, even if he's Matir the Nadarim, she's not Mikudeshes. We gave one answer yesterday. In terms of Refuah, it doesn't help in either case. The Rav Amar Haka, in order to answer different rights, Haka b'isha kashuva askina. The right which says that if the Chacham is matir the neder, even though he's matir the neder mikaro, it's like she never had the neder. We're talking about an important woman. The Amar lo nichali di itzer b'krovo seha. Right, when he makes a neder that he doesn't want his wife to have nedarim, he's worried about two things. First of all, he doesn't want his wife to have isurim or chumras upon himself. It's hard to marry a woman who's machmir. For a woman to marry a man who's machmir, but also it's even harder for a man to marry a woman who's machmir. And then secondly, if she has been taking Nadarim in the past, he assumes that she'll probably take Nadarim in the future. So if it's a woman that doesn't come from an important family, he might want to marry her sister or her daughter, relatives. I don't think he want to marry his mother, her mother, probably older, but unless she's like a cougar or something like that. But if she's an important lady, so the fact that the Chacham is matir her Nadarim doesn't tell me that she's not going to make Nadarim in the future. And if she makes Nadarim in the future, she's going to have to megarish her. And when you're married to a woman, you're megarish her, you become asur b'krovoseh. When you're married to her, automatically, when Makadish a lady, the Kiddushin is valid, you're asur b'krovoseh. And he wants to marry maybe her relative. So therefore, even if the Chacham is matir her Nadarim, the fact that she made Nadarim is something which invalidates the marriage. So the Gemara says, the Brisa continues and says that if he was the one that made Nadarim, she stipulated she doesn't want a man with Nadarim or a man with Mumim. He went subsequently after the Erison, he went to Mata the Nadarim, or the doctor actually healed his Mumim, Mikudeshes. This is interesting, and it says even if the doctor healed his Mumim, she's Mikudeshes. Listen to Aina Mikudeshes. We should say also in that case, she's not Mikudeshes. Right? What about an important man? The Amrlo Nichali, it's a krive. Right? When a woman marries a man, she also becomes asur to his krovim, his father, his brother, his son. She doesn't want that. Why is she okay with that? So then where's the I b'chol hu nichala? The Gemara says a very important distinction. My watch is able to start my music playing, so it gets involved sometimes. I really should take off my watch when I get my share. This is causing numerous problems. All right. I do advocate for smartwatches. Mine's a Fossil Generation 6. But sometimes it gets involved and it gets in the way of her share. So the Gemara says, she likes a woman wants to get married. It's so important for women to get married. If you're not part of the shidduch scene, you know how distraught single women are when they don't get married. Obviously, it's hard for a man also, but women really want to get married. They want to have tandu. They want to have two bodies, two together. We'll talk more about this in Enoch Ben Sion than to be an old maid. Abai Amar. So therefore, even if he had mumim or he had nadarim, if after the erison he was matzah the nadarim or the doctor healed his mumim, she's okay with that. So the Gemara says, we're going to explain this distinction between woman and man in Iyot Ben Sion. Abaye Amar, Deshumshana Gavra Kurse Becharasa. Abaye just explains this further, what Rulak is just saying. Even if the man is very short like an ant, right? The fact that she's married, she can sit among the free ladies, the important ladies. Rami, she puts her chair there. Rami la. Rav Papa Amar de nafsa gavra tikriye b'seife baba v'seisev. Even if her husband has a lowly job, he spins wool, she'll call him to the doorstep and sit with him. Rav Ashi Amar de kalsa gavra l'bayi talfache l'kidre. Even if he has questionable lineage, right? She'll marry him. She won't even ask him to support her in a nice way, even for lentils, for her pot. She still wants to be married. Tana v'chula mizanos who tell us about land. The unfortunate reality is, although they want to be married and say they're married because it helps their stature, and also tav l'mesav tandu l'mesav armula, they get the bodily warmth of another man. They're not completely happy with their husbands because really a woman wants to marry a man, not these people that are not really men. They act more like women or look more like women, so they'll end up committing adultery, and when they have children, they'll say, no, it's my husband's child, even though it doesn't look like the husband, it looks like the random man that she's been hanging out with. All right, Kol Mumim Shapostin, it's like Gemara also in Yevamos. Kol Mumim Shapostin, Benashim, Postin, Kohanim, Postin, Benashim, Tano, Hosifo Alei, and the mission said, the Bryce says, they added by movement of an Isha, Zeya V'shum of Reach HaPeh. In addition, even though these movement wouldn't pass by Kohanim, if they sweat, a woman sweats a lot, or she has a shuma, or she has a mole, she has bad breath, that would invalidate the marriage. The Gemara says these things would not be a mum by a kohen. It says in a Mishnah in the Seches Bechoros that by animals, a bechor, an animal, also can't have movement. So if it has an old animal, or a chol, or a sick animal, a zuam, or a sweaty animal, these mumen, which were stated by an animal, a bechor is an animal, if it's a kohen, right, whether they're transient movement, meaning they'll pass, or they're forever, right, they're chronic movement, they would passel by an adam, by a kohen. Simzuam, a bad smell, is one of them. Amar Rabbi Yossi Rachani Lokash, Kamazeo Veres, Kamazeo She'eno Veres, right? Talking about if you could get rid of the bad smell, right, by an animal or by a kohen, it's talking about whether it's easy to get rid of it or not. If you can get rid of it, even though we said overin, right, even if it's a transient, but you can't just get rid of it at your will. It will dissipate over time. Here we're talking about Zeo Veres by a woman. She smells bad and she could put some perfume on. It's still a problem. Ravashi Amar Lokash Kam Zeo Veres. Ravashi Amar Zeya Amazuam Karam, as you're asking him, Zeya Amazuam, two different words. Hasam Gav Kohanim, Afshala Avra Bekila Dechamer. Well, by Kohanim, you can get rid of it, you have a bad smell. You can put a mixture of wine and vinegar, some type of cologne. If it's a bad smell coming from the mouth, halitosis, he can have some pepper in his mouth. It really means like spearmint or peppermint gum or something like that, or Tic Tacs. Avoda, and he can do that avoda, and when he's doing that avoda, he won't have halitosis. Avagabi isha lo efshar. By a woman, it's not efshar. Why not efshar? Rashi says because you're always speaking with her, you're always around your wife. She can't constantly be putting mouthwash in her mouth. We'll talk more about this in Iyot Ben Sion. What type of mole are we talking about that passes by a woman? If it's a mole that has hair on it, also it passes by kohanim also. Delo is basar, it doesn't have hair. Ishamagdola, if it's a big mole, he haka pasta, it also passes by kohanim. Ishamakdanahi, if it's a small mole, haka lo pasta. By both cases, it doesn't pass the sanya. Where do we know this? He says Shuma sheyesh basar harezimum. A mole that has hair growing out of it, it's a mum by a kohen. Ein basar, if it doesn't have hair, gdola, if it's a big one, or is a mum. Tana is that mum. If it's big, yes. Small, no. Bezu gdola. What is the standards of considered big? Pirashur shungam li alad ki Israel talki, the size of Israel talki, an Italian coin. I don't know, a penny. If it's the size of a penny, up to a penny, that's small. Bigger than a penny, it's big. Amar Yosef Chanina Gomedas Habadachta. Yosef Chanina says the answer is we're talking about a mole that's on her forehead, right? It's on her forehead. So the Gemara immediately asks, Rav and Ifayas. So if he sees it on our forehead, right? We're talking about moles that are on our body that were uncovered when she's wearing clothes. right? And then when they get married and she takes off her clothes, he sees them. It's on her forehead, so he's okay with it, right? It's on her forehead, but right next to her hairline. A lot of times women will wear something to cover their hair, like shaitels. Even though I said you don't really need to wear a shaitel, sometimes women will cover their hair. Um, they'll put a kippah on rosha, kippah, a yarmulke, put a yarmulke on their head. Some women who have hair, don't have enough hair, they'll wear what are they called, extensions, or they'll fall just you don't have to wear a wig, but sometimes you need to wear a wig. You don't have a hair. It looks better to wear a wig than having receding hair. So the zinin the meschazi of zinin the lo meschazi. Something that can be seen, something that can't be seen. And in that case, this is a type of mole that when it comes to kohanim, it wouldn't pass, because it doesn't really bother you so much. Sometimes it's seen, sometimes not. By a woman, even though it's seen sometimes, it's enough to pass. I heard something from a great person, Reb Shila. Who is Reb Shila? She was bit by a dog, and she has a huge scar. Now it has to be a big scar. She has a deep voice. It's considered a mum. When it's talking about beauty, it says your voice is sweet, and your countenance is pleasant, your appearance is pleasant. The call has to be nice. A nice voice for a woman usually is a soprano voice. Most women don't have a soprano voice, but at least have a high-pitched voice. If she has a very low-pitched voice, a bass voice, I don't know, then it would be like a man's voice, maybe baritone also, like a man's voice. I think a tenor voice would be okay. That's not considered deep, even though for a woman to be considered deep. He said something in a brisa. Between the breasts of a woman, a tefach, a space of a tefach. So what did that mean? He thought it means if there's a space of a tefach in her chest between one breast and another breast, tefach is about, I don't know, this amount, I don't know, a couple inches, an inch or two, maybe an inch, I think, is a tefach. He thought that's a good thing. I Rav Ashi got mumintan, and no, a tefach is a mum. It's a problem that if he makes a stipulation, I want to get married mumin, and she has a tefach between her breasts, he can passel the marriage. Vikama. So the Gemara asks, how much? So Rashi says, Vikama, how much is an amount of space between the breasts that looks nice? Amar Rabbi shalosh etzbo. Shalosh etzbo is usually a tefach is 4 etzbo, so 3/4 of a tefach is nice. 3 fingers like this to measure between the breasts. It's interesting to note the Maram Shif, I believe it is. Where does he say over here? For me, this is interesting. Where does it say this? I want to read it exactly from the art scroll. Where is it? Oh, Sima Ram Shif considers what the practical import of such a question might be. He asks, why is this important? The Gemara is telling us what's considered nice between the breasts of a woman, how much space between the breasts of a woman. When I hear a question like that, I don't know. Maram Shef gave an answer. I don't know what his answer is, but when I hear a question like that, I'm like, what? I'm like, come on. The whole point of the Torah is to enjoy the world. You gotta know. The Torah tells you what's nice, what's not nice. You gotta know what's nice. You want to pick out a wife, you gotta know her measurements. So the Gemara says, continue with the measurements of a woman. Tanya, we also remember called Isha Shedadeh Gasim Mishal Charuseh. She has huge breasts. Harez a mum. It's considered a mum. The Kama Amar of Maisha Bar Bareid or Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, or Maisha the grandson of Yeshua ben Levi, Mishmei of Yeshua ben Levi. He said the name of Yeshua ben Levi, Tefach. Meaning her breasts are bigger than a standard, even the biggest woman's by a tefach. Now a tefach, we said, is, I don't know, an inch. How much is a tefach? An inch is a tefach. This is 4 inches. How much is a tefach? 4 inches is a tefach, let's say. So, for example, if anyone's familiar with cups, A, B, C, D, most men prefer a woman with bigger breasts, but I think A is like 1 inch, B 2 inches, meaning more than the base of the chest, how much the breasts are extended above the base of the chest. A would be 1 inch, B would be 2 inches, 3, C 3, D is 4. So if you have another 4 inches past D, that's what I think the Gemara is saying. So that would be EFGH. If the woman has cup size of H, there are bras like that. So women that are on the more obese side, they tend to have bigger breasts. So if she has, I guess like what I'm saying, she has cups the size of an H, that is too big, and that's considered a mum. Um, Even though most men would prefer something like a D, but if she's too big, then it's considered a mum. Uh, Omega Kukiagam, is there such a thing? A woman have such a big breast? In Damara Rakhan Amanura Isi Arvia Achaz, I saw one Arabic woman. Shevshila Del Acharea. She took off her bra, Vehinika as Banan, she nursed her son, and she had huge breasts. We'll see on Yamar Ish Ish Ba Huyachaneh Elyon. This is nothing related to what we're talking about before, it's just another teaching by Rav Maisha. Amar Rav Maisha, Barbarei the Shubin Levi, Echad Anolad Ba, Echad Mitzap La Rosa. Zion is Eretz Yisrael or Yerushalayim, right? We'll talk about two men, Ish v'ish, will give honor to Yerushalayim. It's talking about, so Rishon ben Levi says, it's talking about Echad Anolad Ba, Echad Mitzap La Rosa, the two men mentioned over here, one that was born in Yerushalayim, and one that, even though he's not born there, he desires to go see it. Amar Abaye, V'chad Minay Adav K'trei Minan. He said, one of them, who lives in there, who was born in Yerushalayim, is better than two of us from Bavel. Amar Rava, V'chad Minan Kisal Hasan. For one Babylonian and one Chutznik who goes to Yerushalayim and lives there, Adav K'trei Minayu, he's better than even two Babylonians. Rabbi Yirmiyah was, he was in Bavel, he was in Lakewood, I don't know, he didn't know what the Rabbanim were saying. When he came to Yerushalayim and learned in the Mir Yerushalayim, learned in Brisk, so then he was considered to be as strong as two Babylonians. So the Gemara is saying an interesting thing, that usually the best learners are from Chutz La'aretz, but the best of the best are the ones who are born in Chutz La'aretz and come to Yerushalayim. Like me, I live in a suburb of Yerushalayim. So I was born in Chutz La'aretz, come to Yerushalayim. Better than all of them. So we get the best year. Mishnah says, Ayuba Mumin v'oda beis avia. New Mishnah. She has a Mumin, right? V'oda beis avia. And she's still in her father's house. After the Erusin, they got engaged. Right? Usually she doesn't go into the husband's shus until Masar Ha'am, until the actual day of the wedding, when she stands in the chuppah. And he made a stipulation. He doesn't want mumin, right? So she's claiming, and the father's claiming, and the mumin happened after the Erusin, right? He was Makadish Shem Nashi and the mumin. She didn't have mumin after the Erusin. They happened. So the father has to bring a proof. He has to prove that it happened after the Erusin, and therefore it was his field got damaged. Once she goes to Baal to get married, he goes to the hotel room with her. Then it's the burden of proof is on the husband. He has to prove that the mumin were before the Erusin, not after the Erusin. What are we talking about? We're talking about mumin that are normally covered by her clothing. A mumin that are exposed. And he can't say those mun, because even though he made a stipulation, I want to go marry to her if she has mumin, if he saw it, you can see it it's on her hand, it's on her face, he accepted it. The Rabbanan say that if there's a spa in that city where a lot of the women tend to go, and they would see his future wife without clothes on, so therefore they would presumably tell him about any mumin there. So therefore, he can't claim, I didn't know about those movements. Obviously, he heard about the movement. He was okay with them, so he can't make a taina and invalidate the marriage. The Gemara says, time with the Maisya Av Raya. We're on Ayin Hema Beis now. Time with the Maisya Av Raya. The reason, it says in the Mishnah, that he can invalidate the marriage is the father brings up proof that the movement happened after Eris. And Halu Maisya Av Raya, if the father does not bring the proof, a Baal Mehemen, right? The burden of proof is on the father. If not, the husband is believed that the moon were from before Eris and Mani. Whose opinions does reflect? Rabbi Yeshua, we had a machlokas on the good base and with base between if she was after Eris and she finds out that she's not a psula, so she claimed that she was raped after Eris and it was nistach pasadeh, it was his fault, and he claims no, maybe really you were raped before the marriage, right? And you deserve a ksuva of ba'ula, not a psula, not 100, not 200, or I could say makachtos, according to one opinion. Who do we believe? So Yeshua says we don't believe her, right? We believe that it happened before the Eris, and so you see the burden of proof is on her and her father, right? Ema safe. I say the end of our Mishnah. So those a Baal Sarach Lavi Raya. The burden of proof is on the husband. He has to bring a proof. How Maisya Baal Raya? Ha'av Mehem, and the fathers believed that it happened after Erisa. And Aslan Gamliel, the Amar Nem Menes. That seems the safe our Mishnah seems to go with the first opinion of that Mishnah. Or Gamliel says she's Nem Menes. She is believed that it happened after Erisa. And Amar Lazar Tavra. How do you reconcile the Reish and Sefer Mishnah? Lazar says Tavra. Mishana Zula Shana Zara. Mishnah is broken, right? Obviously, the Reish or Mishnah reflects the opinion of Yeshua, and the Sefer reflects the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. Our Mishnah reflects two different opinions. Amar Rava Lo Tema Rabbi Yeshua. Rava just clarifies; he's not giving a new answer. Lo Tema Rabbi Yeshua Azal Basar Chazaka Degufa Klal. Right? We explained in Daf Yud Beis that the reason Rabbi Yeshua says we don't believe her, even though technically she has a migo, and she has a cheskas haguf, right? Cheskas haguf, right? We assume that she was born a psula. So the cheskas haguf tells me she's a psula until we know better. So we'd assume if she was raped, it was after the erisin. So he says you don't go after cheskas haguf klal. Right? Because she's trying to emoti mamo on the ksuva from him, the masayim from him. Aval hecha, in our case also, the ksuva, Yeshua normally would consider chazaka the guf important. You would go after the status quo of the body. The sanya, what's the proof to that? When it comes to tzaras, when you have tzaras, you need to have a white spot, and you need to have a hair in that white spot. So if the white spot, this is halacha and misakas nagoyim, the white spot came before the sar lavan, before the white hair, Tommy, that's considered tzaras. Imsar lavan kodem lebeheres, we know that the white hair came before the white spot, tar, that's not considered tzaras. Safek, if you're not sure which came first, Tommy. Tanakama holds it's Tommy. Safek, we can go lechomer. Yeshua omer kaha. He says it's faint. My ka. What does that mean? Amarabba ka tar. Ka means that it's tar. So you see, Rabbi Shua goes here, the chazakat the gufa, that she didn't have tzaras, right? That she didn't have. So therefore, in a safek, which came first, the hair or the spot, we assume that she's tahor, and the hair came first and not the spot, and they go after the chazaka deguf. So you see, when there's no cheskas mamo by nagoyim, there's no money involved. So then the chazaka deguf is sufficient grounds to prove that the person is tahor. This is really, I don't like to stop so early in the Amud and the Daf, but really this is a new discussion, a new answer to try to figure out who our Mishnah is like. So I'm going to stop here because the discussion goes on for a while, and I involved the next Daf 76 is a short Daf anyway. That's the conclusion of today's share. I hope you enjoyed. Of course you enjoyed today's share. It was a great share, unbelievable share. Stay tuned for Ian Van Sion. We're going to talk more about blemishes on a man and blemishes on a woman. There's a practical difference, a couple of practical differences mentioned in the Gemara on Ayin Hayam and Aleph. What is behind those practical differences? What is the reasoning behind the practical differences? Coming up in Ian Van Sion next.